Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another family involved true crime video. If you've never seen one of my family involved videos, I will link the playlist below of previous ones that I have done. And the reason I do this style of video is to give the family members of some of these victims a platform. Sometimes I just can't believe how many people I reach, and letting families reach you guys is just so helpful to them. You have no idea. Last month I did one of these videos on Ellen Greenberg, and her family was so grateful for the amount of people that just went to their Facebook page and, left a message or clicked like. And they told me that they had more people come to them on their social media and stuff after my video than they did from even working with a couple TV productions. So that's just huge and made me so proud of this audience. The fact that you guys take the time and you care about these families, that you understand how vital it is that they have a voice. I know some of you really would rather me just tell the entire story, and I understand that. However, I want to do what's going to be best for the victim and their family. So I only do these videos about once a month for that reason, but thank you to everyone who is supportive when I do these. And today we're going to be talking about Melissa Platt. So Melissa's sister Michelle contacted me a few months ago through my victim's advocate form, which is linked below, and asked me if I could cover her sister's case. And when I looked into the details, I definitely was intimidated. This case is really heavy, and I definitely want to say that before we go into it. But it's also such an important video. It's so important to raise awareness about this case because there's no justice here. And I know she's also contacted a few other YouTubers and podcasters to cover this case as well, to try to get the word out to as many as possible. I just looked and saw Danielle Hallen just covered this as well. She's awesome. If you want to hear another take on it, I will link her video below. I know Georgia Marie did one as well. I will link that one below. There's probably a few others. And I just think it's so cool how the true crime community is really helping some of these families, get more eyes on their case, get more possible leads, all types of things. It's so important that as many people talk about these cases as possible. But today we're going to be talking a lot about domestic violence. So I wanted to also take this opportunity to promote my latest charity campaign with Her Justice. Sorry if you can hear my dog's collar. Her Justice works with women specifically in New York, and 90% of their clients are women of color. 75% of them are survivors of domestic violence. Your ability to get justice should not depend on how much you're able to afford. And that's one thing that we're going to be talking about with this case as well. So that's why Her Justice has the Shift the Power campaign, and it's a commitment to advancing economic justice for women living in poverty. So there will be a link below to donate if you would just like to donate whatever you're able to, or you can purchase yourself a planner, a journal, or a dream journal from Magic of I. I did this partnership last year and it did so well, so I wanted to do it again. But these are beautiful, really beautiful. I mean, look at these. They come in a bunch of different colors, and these are vegan leather. And Magic of I is a small company. They have astrological planners, so if you are into astrology, these are great for you. Or they have journals. There are lined ones, there are blank ones. There are so many options, and they also have moon phase calendars now. So if you already have a planner, it's not too late to pick something up from Magic of I. You can get yourself a nice journal. And if you do, 15% of your purchase will be going to Her Justice. And Magic of I is also donating 5% to planetary and wildlife rehabilitation. Not only that, you get 10% off, which is awesome. That code is exclusive to my channel, so definitely check it out. It is Kendall 2021. All the information you'll need is linked below. So huge thank you to everyone who has bought one using that code. It's so appreciated, and I can't wait to see what else we continue to do. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that I am opening a form for anyone who is interested in possibly working with me the way that I work with Magic of I in a charity capacity. You've got to be, pretty well established, definitely be able to handle larger quantities. So I'll have that form and more information about that linked below. But let's go ahead and get into the case. So today we're talking about Melissa Sue Mims Platt, who was born in Houston, Texas on February 3rd, 1977 to her parents Marion and Michael Mims. She has two sisters, Maria and Michelle. Michelle's the one who contacted me and who you will see in this video, and she also has one brother named Michael Jr. Throughout Melissa's life, she had several different health issues, which I will talk more about, but it all started when she was a newborn. She had a severe case of colic, and she also had low blood sugar, so hyperglycemia, and had to be hospitalized for a month after her birth. birth, which was really, scary for her mother. But after she recovered from that, she was just fine and was a really healthy kid in her early childhood. Even as a baby, when she was still crawling around, they noticed right away that she was very adventurous and had a really happy personality. Melissa was very close with her sisters, and she and Michelle actually would ride pieces of cardboard down their family staircase, and they would also jump off their roof onto a mattress. So they were very adventurous. The three girls were so close when they were growing up that her mother actually would dress them up matching as if they were triplets.
We were best friends. We were so close. We were actually called two peas in a pod when we were younger because we were just always together. I have really good memories of staying up late when we weren't supposed to and watching scary movies and going to sleep and having terrible nightmares, but then get up the next day and watch another one because, we loved that. We had such a blast doing that. And my sister would be the first to tell anybody that, she'd say, I can't sing for nothing. But that didn't stop her. She would turn on our little home recorder. She would sing her heart out. I try so hard to focus on those positive memories that we have. But then it's difficult. Knowing what happened to her.
When she was 8 years old, their family moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina, and started a new chapter there. But they only stayed there for about 4 years before heading right back to Texas and settling in Baytown. When Melissa was younger, when she was about 15, she started to work for McDonald's, and she was specifically in charge of planning and executing birthday parties, which I think is so cute, so 90s. Birthday parties at McDonald's were so fun when you were a kid, and I think it would be a really good job for someone who loves kids, and Melissa definitely did.
She absolutely loved children. She would talk about how she couldn't wait to become a mother.
Eventually, when she was 16, she decided to move back to Jacksonville to live with her sister Maria and her family. She had several kids, and Melissa loved her kids, so she wanted to spend more time with them and kind of help out. Then in October of 1995, Melissa had her first daughter named Brianna. She was super thrilled to be a mother. She could not wait to raise her daughter. But just like her daughter unfortunately had some health issues when she was born. She had a cleft lip, and she also had a hole in her heart. So they spent a lot of time at the Ronald McDonald House, which, if you are not familiar with that, it's a place where families don't have to pay, they can stay, and they're taken care of if their child is sick. Melissa got married in 2001 before having her second daughter, who's named Chastity, and she was born on July 4th, 2003. However, this marriage did not last long, and she and her husband separated in 2005. But Melissa was just so happy to have kids. That's what really drove her in life. She loved being a mother. She loved her children. And Melissa was described as being a really bubbly and cheerful person with an infectious smile. She was also always willing to help anyone in need. And Melissa also loved animals. I felt like that was something we had in common. I love people that love animals. I feel like if you love animals, you just have this good nature about you. And she had a little pet parrot named Alvin. Isn't that the cutest thing? So fast forward to 2008. Melissa was 31 at this time, and she started dating a guy named Joey. Joey worked at Barn Hill Construction Company, and he actually met Melissa in 2006 at the auto parts store that she worked at. And this Joey guy is bad news, okay? He's had a history of domestic violence up until meeting Melissa, which I will explain more. He had already had 2 ex-wives, both who are very scared of him. So this was not a good person for Melissa to be with from the beginning. He lived in a single wide trailer on Rex Howard Road in Pink Hill, which I guess is a very, very small town, kind of a farming community. There's only a little over 500 people living in this town, and it's about an hour away from Greenville, North Carolina. And at this time, Melissa was having some legal trouble. She was on probation for writing bad checks, and she was not allowed to leave the state. She was convicted in Onslow County in 2005. Now, Melissa was really into Joey, and she would stay at his trailer most of the time. She pretty much lived there, and eventually she even got a tattoo of the name Joey on her lower back. And a huge element of their relationship was alcohol. They spent a lot of time drinking together. Up until this, Melissa was never a huge drinker. She liked beer, But when she met Joey, she started drinking hard liquor. At one point, Melissa just realized things were totally out of her control, that she had developed an addiction to alcohol. So she made the decision to get some help, and she contacted the Onslow County Behavioral Health Clinic in Jacksonville, and also the Walter B. Jones Alcohol and Drug Abuse Treatment Center in Greenville. But Joey was not supportive of this at all. He wanted her to continue drinking. He didn't want her to get help. So when he would pick her up from either of those two clinics, he would literally stop and get alcohol on the way home and then pretty much make her drink it. And he would even threaten to leave her if she went to rehab. So he was the worst possible partner you could have if you are dealing with an addiction.
The relationship between Melissa and Joey just was incredibly toxic. He was very controlling, manipulative. He didn't want her to have a car. He didn't want her to have a job. He didn't want her to see or talk to family. We didn't know for quite some time what was really going on. You know, abuse victims tend to, hide what's going on, make excuses for bruises on their body, and Melissa was no different. When I did find out what was going on, I tried to tell her, get out of that. You can come live with me. I'll help you out until you can get on your feet. But she was scared. She would tell me about things that would happen between them. For instance, one night he just, didn't like the way she looked at him. He forcefully kicked her out of the house through a window, actually. He threw her out this window, shut the window, locked it, and locked her out all night. She told me that she couldn't get into her car to sleep in there, so she had to sleep on the ground. Now, this apparently was nothing new. So there's an incident that I want to talk about that occurred prior to all this, but during Melissa and Joey's relationship. So Melissa was shot, and she went to the hospital. She told the doctors that she shot herself. Now, she was shot about right here. And if you think about that, that's a very awkward angle to turn a gun and shoot yourself. So I firmly believe that this was just another incident where Melissa was covering up for Joey. Now, I can't prove it. I'm just going off of the medical report, knowing how abusive and toxic their relationship was. And I feel it's important to bring this up to kind of help you understand how scared of him she was. He would threaten to kill her, and I feel like based on this, she believed that he meant what he said.
Now, before we go any further, I do again want to say this is a very, very difficult case to talk about. And I know all true crime cases are, and it's to be expected, and I don't normally put any type of trigger warning on my videos normally, just because it gets flagged with YouTube if I do that, which I'm pretty sure this video is going to be demonetized. If it's not, I will be donating whatever is able to be raised through ad revenue to Melissa's family. But again, I highly doubt that it's going to be monetized, and it's so important that I'm able to say as much as I can. As brutal as this case is, I think it's so important to hear the reality of what some women face. And of course, not just women, some men face domestic violence as well. It's just truly an epidemic that we have to deal with. And I know it can be difficult to listen to stories of domestic violence if you have experienced it yourself. And statistically, I know a large chunk of you probably have. And I really, really feel for you. And that's why I want to let you know that I'm going to be getting into some serious details here. And it might be a good time to go ahead and click out if that's going to be too difficult for you to hear. And I also, of course, for legal reasons, want to say that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and that the points I'm about to make are alleged and from the family. So on October 3rd, 2008, it seems Joey beat Melissa severely. And after he beat her, he just wrapped her up in a blanket and left her there. She was left rolled up in this blanket, lying on a mattress in excruciating pain, wrapped in a blanket alone for days. And for 6 days, while she was lying there, Joey was coming in and out of the trailer, going to work, going wherever else, who knows where he was going, honestly, and acted like everything was normal, just was doing his typical routine. Now, Melissa was very close with her mother. She would talk to her on the phone as often as they could, and over that 6 days, her mother, Marion, called several times, hoping to get a hold of Melissa, and every time she wasn't able to. And when Joey would pick up the phone, which at first that's what he would do, he would make up some excuse for, why she wasn't there, why she couldn't come to the phone, whatever.
So my mom called back to speak to her, and Joey answered, but made up an excuse why she couldn't come to the phone.
But Marion knew that she would eventually call her back even if she was busy, and it was just excuse after excuse. So she started to get pretty suspicious. And at that point, Joey just stopped answering the phone. He just would let it go to the voice message machine.
The answer machine picked up, she left a voicemail, and then the next day it just rang and rang. So you could tell the answer machine had been turned off.
And she would leave messages for Melissa, and she knew that if Melissa heard those messages, that she would have called back. So since Melissa was having some legal troubles, she was on probation and had a probation officer. So her mother called her probation officer.
My mom just had a gut feeling that something was very, very wrong. And so that's when she called my sister's parole officer and said, can you please go do a welfare check? We just had a horrible sinking feeling that something very bad happened. I instantly, knowing how their relationship is, went to the absolute worst case scenario, and all I could do is just say, please let it be that she was just too scared to talk on the phone, and that it's not the worst case scenario that I'm thinking.
So this was on October 9th, 2008. And when they got there, Melissa was in horrible condition. She was lethargic and in extreme pain. Still alive, but barely. She had bruises all over her face, all over her body. She, just miscolored skin. She looked exhausted. So of course he called right away for help, and paramedics got there very quickly. And paramedics, when they got to the scene, some of them said that this was one of the worst scenes that they had ever seen. And you got to remember, these people have seen some horrific stuff.
The first responders report is very telling to me. They said that the moment they walked inside, they could smell her body fluids. And so that tells me when he would leave and come back, he had to have smelled that. He obviously knew what state she was in. It was clear that she needed immediate medical attention.
The condition that Melissa was left in was completely inhumane. And like I said, Melissa was alive, but she was unresponsive. She was breathing normally, which gave them hope. And also, when they spoke loudly to her, she would open her eyes. She was still wrapped in a blanket or a dust ruffle, and she was naked from the waist down. Her head and arm were through her shirt, but only on one side, so one arm was just hanging out. And this is the most horrific part, probably. Melissa was left lying in her own urine, feces, and vaginal blood. There was a bottle of liquor right on the nightstand next to the bed, so they knew that alcohol was probably involved. So she was taken by ambulance to the Lenore Memorial Hospital. They brought her in and did everything they could, but her injuries were so severe.
I mean, she was bruised head to toe. Like every part of her had some kind of bruise, whether it was an old one that was in, different stages of healing or brand new ones.
She had really dark and deep new bruises in her abdomen area, and even her pubic bone was bruised and swollen. And she also had 2 black eyes.
Her jaw was broke in 2 places.
They did a CAT scan on her, and they were able to see bleeding in the brain.
She had a brain bleed. She had a 2x5 mark on her neck. She had huge bruises that looked like almost the shape of a foot, like she was either kicked or stomped on.
Not only that, guys, it gets worse. Her jaw was dislocated in 2 places, and she was also missing a lot of her teeth. And that's when they realized that her condition was much worse than they were able to handle at the hospital she was at, so they flew her somewhere else. They life flighted her to Pitt County Memorial Hospital in Greenville, North Carolina, and they performed an emergency craniotomy. So after surgery, she was out for a long time. She was found on October 9th, and then it wasn't until October 17th that she opened her eyes after surgery. And at this time, she was able to talk to police a little bit, but she was on a ton of pain medication. She didn't really know what was going on, and at first she told them that she was in a really bad car accident. I mean, she could have had a dream, who knows, or maybe she just found that from a movie, or, she had no idea what was going on. And then after that, she told the police that she was actually just clumsy and fell down a lot. And I'm not sure if this was to protect her boyfriend or if she just genuinely didn't know what was going on because of the pain medication. It was obvious that her injuries weren't from just falling down a lot. Why would she be laying in her own feces and urine when someone's in the trailer with her for 6 days? It doesn't make any sense.
I remember being at the hospital and I was in a room with Detective Braden. He was the lead detective on the case. I was really confused because Joey hadn't been arrested at all, like just brought in for questioning. And I asked him, I said, what is going on with this? Are y'all planning to arrest him? At the minimum, for negligence, for allowing another human being to lay in that state for several days. And he said, well, he was taking care of her. And I was kind of taken aback by this statement. And I said, how was he taking care of her? And he said, well, he was feeding her and keeping her hydrated, being that she had a jaw broke in 2 places. I said, how was he feeding her with a broken jaw? And he said, oh, you can eat with a broken jaw. And he just got up and walked out of the room. And I really couldn't believe what I had just heard.
So investigators decided that they, should just wait to interview her until she's a little further into her recovery. But unfortunately, that never happened. Now, when Melissa's family talked to her about the situation, they heard a very different story. According to them, she told them exactly what Joey had done to her. Now, this was actually written down in a journal, word for word, by Melissa's mother, Marion.
My mom and sister were like, Melissa, look, what happened to you? Did somebody do this to you? And she said, yes. They said, was it Joey that did this to you? And a look of absolute fear and terror came over her. And she said that he dragged her outside by her neck, threw her into the bushes, ripped her shirt off, and hit her over the head with something hard.
And also, according to Melissa's mother, Joey had also been forcing her to drink alcohol through a straw.
There was a can that was actually filled with liquor and had a straw in it. And knowing that my sister was unable to move in her state, it's pretty clear that he was giving her this alcohol, and I truly believe it was just to keep her, loopy and out of it, intoxicated.
So Melissa ended up being in the ICU for 9 weeks. Imagine what that was like for her family. Ups and downs, maybe she's gonna survive, maybe she won't. What truly happened? I mean, so much emotion, so much trauma. And things had gotten even worse for her during this time because she got a horrible case of meningitis, which if you know anything about that, you know how absolutely devastating that can be on someone's body. And not only that, she also developed a staph infection. Towards the end of this 9-week period, she started having a lot of seizures. She was unconscious a lot of the time. She barely knew what was going on. And it became clear to some of the doctors that she just was not going to make it. And at one point, fluid filled her brain and they had to insert a second tube to relieve some of that pressure. And then tragically on December 17th, 2008, Melissa was pronounced brain dead. At this point, her family had to make the horrific decision to take her off life support. Melissa was only 31 years old. So when they did the autopsy, they discovered that Melissa's cause of death was traumatic brain injury. And at first, the forensic pathologist said that this would be consistent with her alcoholism and her fall. So let's talk about the investigation. So immediately, Joey is the prime suspect. Her whole family thinks that it's Joey. So the police interviewed Joey's ex-wives and his 2 sons. His first wife and him had 2 children together, and they divorced in 2001. And then 6 months later, he ended up getting with his second wife and married her in 2002. After conducting some interviews, they also found out that he was violent towards his own mother in his house growing up. And not just verbally, he was physically and mentally abusive to his own mother. So it tells you what kind of guy he is. And apparently, a few times it was so bad that she almost went to the hospital or called the police, but she was too scared and never did. There was also a lot of abuse to his own children. He slapped them, he punched them, and they interviewed his youngest kids, and they said that they witnessed him several times being horribly abusive to their mother, and that they would have to physically break up some of their fights as children, which is so scarring.
They told the police about all this horrific abuse they saw Joey commit against their mother. But one of them actually was at Joey's place when my sister was there, and he said that Joey would be very demeaning to her. And there was one incident where he said Joey held up his hand pretending like he had a gun in his hand, and like put it up against her head and pretended to pull the trigger and was just laughing.
So clearly this guy has a serious history of abuse. So one of his sons, Joseph, ended up staying with him for a brief period of time in the trailer with Melissa there. So he was kind of able to see what their relationship was like. And according to him, Melissa was a trophy to him. And he also believed that Melissa was cheating on him at the time. And he said that he was glad that his father was finally getting a taste of his own medicine, that someone was hurting him because he had hurt everyone else. According to him, there was a ton of drinking in the house, that their tolerance for alcohol was just out of control. They were drinking all day, every day. He said while he was there, Joey had never hit Melissa, but that he did see him verbally and mentally abuse her time and time again. And he would always make his other wives lie and say that their bruises were from other accidents. So he would just talk about how clumsy all of his wives happened to be. And Joey actually told his son, Joshua, that when he had come home one day, he found Melissa just passed out on a concrete slab in front of their house. He said that she fell out there and that those injuries are what caused her death.
So Joey claims that the way Melissa got all her injuries was from falling outside onto like a concrete slab. It doesn't make sense at all. There's just no way she could get that amount of injuries from what he described happened to her. It just doesn't add up. Let's say in some bizarre world that that's actually what happened to her, then why did you allow her to lay in that state for days suffering? When I think about the amount of pain she must have been in, she would have wanted help.
No, it's definitely clear that Melissa had a serious drinking problem. It had spiraled out of control into a terrible addiction where she felt very helpless. According to Joey's son, Joseph, Melissa was drinking all throughout the day. She drank beer in the mornings and just would continually drink, and that Joey pushed her to drink more and more. And he also had expressed to Joey that he was worried that Melissa was drinking way too much. So he would send her to detox. And Joseph said that he thought Joey was just doing this to kind of make himself feel better about the situation and to look good to everybody else. Joey had also opened up to Joseph about how Melissa had cheated on him and how she was cheating with like a delivery driver and stuff. So they were definitely having a lot of arguments and domestic disputes in their relationships over things like that. At one point, Joey actually called the guy that Melissa had cheated on him with and asked him to come pick her up. And he did, and she stayed with him for 3 months, but then he dropped her back off with Joey eventually. So the police interviewed Joey several times, and they even went back to the trailer to reenact everything in the bathroom. Joey had claimed that she had taken another horrible fall in the bathroom.
He said that she fell in the bathroom and got pinned between the toilet and the tub. He said he came home and found her that way. Oh, and that she had also hit a plastic trash can. It was a very small plastic trash can in the bathroom on the way down. And this doesn't make sense at all to me. I've seen the size of that bathroom and the gap between the toilet and the tub where he claims he found her pinned between. Like a small child couldn't even fit in between that gap. So that already doesn't make sense to me.
And during interviews, the investigators actually said that they were trying to clear him, and they didn't take that much time interrogating him or investigating him. Apparently, he was super cooperative. They thanked him profusely for his cooperation, in fact, and they liked him, it seemed. And they even said that he had been fantastic. Now, Joey also offered to take a polygraph test, but he was cleared for being able to do that process because he had a heart condition which could ruin the results, so it would be pointless. So they never did that. And his story was that Melissa had first fallen outside on September 29th. He said that that night Melissa had been drinking all night and she went outside and fell onto the neighbor's concrete carport. And according to him, she got up from this and made it to his car, got in there, and was just sitting in there when he found her hours later. He also said that she was naked because she always slept naked. And he said during that next week after that, she was trying to heal by just kind of relaxing at home, that she didn't want to go to the hospital because of her alcoholism. So they would just relax on the couch, watch TV, hang out, and he thought she was on her way to healing. But he said that she could barely get to the bathroom on her own. She could barely eat. She was in horrible condition during this time. And he said that she just wanted to drink, so he would help her drink with a straw. So basically his story was that she would have all these falls from drinking, and he would find her in random places, and it was just an ongoing issue. But he would continue to force her to drink, it sounds like, didn't want her to get help. So the story doesn't make a lot of sense at all from the beginning, but investigators seem to think that Joey was great and that they, had no reason to think that he could have done something to her. And the police were very much empathetic to Joey during his interviews. They were constantly letting him know, we're gonna get you out of here real quick. Like, sorry to inconvenience you, basically. So Melissa didn't have anyone in her court from the beginning. Literally, while they were waiting to reenact Melissa's fall, they were making small talk with him about the weather, acting like none of this mattered. It didn't even seem like a concern to figure out what really happened to Melissa. Joey explained that she had defecated herself in the bed, and that this was common, I guess, that she couldn't really control her bladder much when she drank, that she would wet the bed almost every time that she drank. He kept saying over and over again that he had done everything for her that he possibly could have, that she was just a really clumsy person. He basically blamed her, said that she was clumsy and a drunk, and that she ended up this way, and that he kind of saw this coming the whole time. So as you probably can guess, Joey was ruled out by the police and is not considered a suspect. Melissa's family is, as you can imagine, absolutely devastated, heartbroken to this day over Melissa's death and the fact that she has not gotten justice. They believe that she is a victim of horrific domestic violence. Her mother has sent letters to the Lenore County District Attorney Brandy Vickery about doing an investigation. She was told that she would be informed of the progress or if the case was closed, but no one ever contacted her. She called over and over again before getting someone on the phone, was told the case status was inactive and there wasn't any evidence for a criminal case. And basically, since Melissa didn't tell the police that this was happening to her, that she was being abused, they said that there's nothing they can do, which is horrible, because that's why so many women are afraid to come forward, to not be believed, or they're afraid of being abused even worse if they come forward and no one helps. But they say everything that she was telling her family and close friends is all considered hearsay to them, which is mind-blowing to me, because she has the bruises and the injuries and the record to prove that there was something more going on. Also, the police could not and cannot to this day explain that bruise on her neck. It's a huge bruise, 2.5 by 5 inches. That's huge. And they cannot explain how it happened. And the medical staff said that there's no way that that is from a fall. It does not make sense. So Joey is really the only potential suspect, if you even consider him that, or if the police even consider him that, I should say. But he was never charged with anything. Not murder, not domestic violence, nothing. At the very least, he should have been charged with failing to call 911, but he wasn't.
Joey was asked why he didn't contact 911, and he actually changed his story. He gave 2 different reasons. The first one, he said that Melissa said she didn't want him to call. I'm sorry, but if you see somebody in the horrific state my sister was in, you would call. And then he changed it and he said that he didn't call because they call so many times and they always come out that they just wouldn't have come out, which that's completely not how that works. When you call 911 to report an emergency, they have to address it.
So the police ended up ruling that her death was caused by an accidental fall, drunken fall. Melissa's family is confident that Joey did this.
My mom had talked to one of the district attorneys one time, and that district attorney told my mom that he fully believes that Joey did this, but he feels like there's not enough evidence to take it to a jury.
They feel that it's pretty obvious she was severely abused. They believe she was for a long time. They tried to get her to leave, but Melissa wouldn't leave, and that's so familiar to so many, I'm sure. Toxic relationships, that's why they're toxic, because you keep getting roped back in. It's this cycle of abuse that is hard to break out of. It's hard to tell other people about. It can be embarrassing, it can be scary, it can be painful, She was going through so much at the end. And if Melissa's mother hadn't called the police, she would have died probably on that mattress in the trailer with Joey, which, at least it was a little better that she was able to pass comfortably in a hospital with her family. Just thinking about her days of lying there in her own filth, it's so inhumane that it's hard to even wrap your mind around the fact that some people could let something like that happen while they're living there with them. It's like a whole nother type of evil. So sadly, Melissa's father, Michael, died in 2010 from cancer before seeing any justice for his daughter. And as of now, the case has been officially closed. And that was decided back in April of 2012.
The captain of the police department that handled my sister's case, his name was Captain Oldenburg. He got to the point, because my mom, we were calling and trying to keep my sister's case on their radar. And it got to the point, Captain Oldenburg told my mom one time to just stop calling him. That's the level of disinterest that we've been dealing with this entire time. Every year, my mom puts together packs and she sends them to Joey, to district attorney, done the governor of North Carolina, senators, and nobody does anything. We've had a district attorney, the current one that's in office, did send a letter to my mom just basically saying, reaffirming that they're basically not going to do anything. There'll be no change to this. So every year we try to keep this on their radar, but so far there's been a complete lack of movement on her case.
And to this day, they say that they think Joey is innocent, that he cooperated fully. They said he was never angry or showed any violence towards the investigators, but obviously he's going to put on a good act for them. There's so much proof. The fact that both of his ex-wives have detailed examples of what they went through should say so much, should carry so much weight. But our system is so messed up that of course it doesn't. As of right now, they say maybe if more evidence is brought forward, they can do something. But as of right now, with her history of alcohol abuse, they say there's nothing that they can do, that the injuries are consistent with a drunken fall. And according to Joey, she was just falling all the time, which obviously drinking can make you more clumsy. It can make you fall. But to the extent that she was, and for his lack of care, that's what gets me, is the lack of care for her in the end. Even if she is falling and drunk, why wouldn't you take her to the hospital, get her help? You just left her there lying in her filth for days?
Apparently it's okay to just allow somebody to lay in your home and slowly die.
The fact that police can see beyond that and think that's in any way normal is just baffling.
And just to know that her life was taken away in such a brutal manner, and he was just able to go on like nothing happened. There was no responsibility put on him for anything. It's just terrifying to know that this could happen to somebody and there's absolutely no repercussions for the person that made it happen. I'm not sure how this documented history of abuse didn't factor in to the investigation, and if it did factor in, it factored out really quick, because we're here right now talking about it. But I just thought it was important to mention all that, because I really do feel like there was some judgment there, and there was just a lack of caring and a lack of interest to really get to the bottom of what happened.
But her family is not giving up. All of them are still fighting. And I can't tell you how important it is just to go and give these families a follow on their social media. Let them know that you're there, that you want justice. Now, there is a petition seeking justice for Melissa. I expect you to take the time to sign it. Petitions don't take long, guys, and they do a lot. So please take a second of your day, sign that petition. And also, Melissa's family is working on raising money to hire a private investigator in North Carolina named Jan Barefoot.
We had a meeting, I went over everything, and she firmly believes there is a major injustice with her case, and she wants to work the case.
And these private investigators are so expensive and so out of reach for so many people. The retainer fee alone for this is $7,500. So if you were able to donate it all, like I said, I will donate whatever revenue is generated from this video to that cause. Hopefully it's monetized. I tried to be as light as I could for a case that's as heavy as this, to see if we can get this monetized. But if not, I will donate whatever is generated through YouTube Red, which is a small amount, but still.
From the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate any support. I created a Twitter account, and it's Justice for Melissa Platt, and I'm posting updates there as well. I also went ahead and created a Teespring store, and any money raised from the Teespring store, 100% of that goes toward the private investigator fund as well. Any support, any help is so greatly appreciated. If anything comes of this, I hope that there are people out there that will hear my sister's story, and I'm referring to people that are in toxic, abusive relationships. And maybe if they hear my sister's story, it'll give them that nudge to, take the first step to try to get out and get to safety.
And before I close this video, I just want to say I am so inspired by Michelle for contacting me to do this video, for speaking up. It's not easy to get on camera and talk to people about a horrific trauma in your life and the loss of a loved one. So I hope that all comments towards her are respectful, that maybe you'll consider follow her on social media, do whatever you can to show that you support what this family has gone through and their efforts to get justice for Melissa Platt. But that is it for me today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps it be seen by more people. And if it's demonetized, the thumbs up are really gonna help. So please definitely do that. Also, make sure to subscribe, put on your notification bell, and that's it. Stay safe out there, you guys, and I will see you next time.